The very first commit to the Wayland repo was back in 2008. Then in 2011, in a talk from KDE, compositing after X, Kwin on the road to Wayland, KDE was on their way to supporting Wayland. In this talk, one of the slides said, in giant letters, "Don't break the desktop." Now, some people, depending on their use case, are certainly gonna debate this one. That's not our main focus here, though. Also, very importantly saying, it's done when it's done. This was 15 years ago, that was quite a while ago, and things are still being worked on. But today, it is in a state where I personally think it's good. I am happy to daily drive it. Any of the problems that I have with KDE Plasma at this point are not related to Wayland. They're just KDE problems in general. At the end of the day, software is never truly done. Even if something doesn't need to change, there are always things that can be improved. Then, late last year, they published this, going all in on a Wayland future, officially announcing that X11 support is going to be dropped as a version 6.8. This led to quite a bit of confusion, but I still see some people confused about today because there was a KDE maintainer that said something very different, throwing the date way further out into the future. First on the Plasma Devel mailing list, Kwin X11 and Kwin Wayland split. This is when they split X11 and Wayland, so if you just want to have the Wayland session only installed, you don't have to have the X11 side as well. Note that Kwin Wayland is de facto just Kwin, and we suggest that Kwin Wayland is still provided by a package called Kwin. This is what most distros are doing now, although of course the final decision is left to the distros. Kwin X11 is expected to be maintained until Plasma 7, no new features are expected to be backported. To be fair, the feature freeze has been in place for quite a while already. Also writing a blog post on the matter, Kwin X11 and Kwin Wayland split. Again, saying pretty much the same thing, there are no plans to drop Kwin/X11 in the Plasma 6 lifecycle, although it's highly possible that it will happen in Plasma 7. I and many other people took this to mean that it wasn't going to happen until Plasma 7. What was actually being said here is at the time of that email, at the time of the blog post, there were no plans to drop it. Nobody really knew when it was going to happen, but we could pretty confidently say it was going to happen in Plasma 7. If it didn't happen before then, there was no way it was surviving that transition. And just a few days back, David Edmondson of the KDE project put out a blog post on KDE, Wayland, and X11. X11 prepping for Plasma's last X11 supported release. Get it? X11 because it's your X, X11, X11. It's funny, I think. As of today, the Plasma X11 session you can log into has been officially removed, and we will start a mass cleanup of X11 specific code soon. This does not affect Plasma 6.7, which is out in about a week or so. That version is feature frozen. That version is still going to have X11 supported. If you need X11, you can keep using that version. However, on the 6.8 branch, that code is now being removed. That release is set for about 5 months from now. When you're going to see that on your individual distro, though, really depends on what you're running. If you're on something like Fedora, probably the next Fedora KDE release after this comes out, whatever number that happens to be. If you're on something like an Arch, you'll probably get the packages within a couple of days. Usually the beta packages end up being in the testing repos, and then things get moved over pretty quickly. Same with most other sensible rolling releases. If you're on something like Ubuntu, I would assume maybe possibly the next release. If not the next release, maybe the October release? Who knows? As for Debian, Debian operates in their own little world, same as SteamOS. SteamOS, I believe, is currently running 6.4.3. They have gone and changed desktop mode to Wayland by default. 6.4.3 is not a supported version. I don't know why they're on that version. Nobody knows why they're on that version. SteamOS and Valve operate, again, like Debian, in their own little world, so that could be who knows when. So, what's changing? In Plasma 6 to date, there will be no X11 session in the login screen. There will only be a Wayland session available to log into. However, if you're a multi-desktop user, let's say you have XFCE installed, or Awesome WM, or DWM, or some other X11 desktop available, Plasma Login Manager, that is their new login manager, the one that's going to be replacing SDDM. Again, that is optional. If you don't want to use Plasma Login Manager, you don't have to use it. If you want to log in from the TTY, you can do that. But Plasma Login Manager will continue to be able to log you into X11 sessions of other desktop environments. So if for whatever reason you maybe had like an older version of Plasma available, or you had a Sonic DE available, or something like that, you could still log into that with the Plasma Login Manager. Again, though, you don't have to use it. But regarding the main point here, there will be no X11 session in the login screen. For a lot of people, this is actually already the case. So they split X11 and Wayland out into a separate package. So in a lot of cases, distros don't even bother installing the X11 site anymore. If you're using Plasma during the transition, or you installed it after the transition on Arch, it doesn't prompt you to install the X11 side. If you want the X11 session, you have to go and install that yourself. There is a package for it and it's easy to install, but you have to go and explicitly choose to install it. In 6 to date, all X11 specific code paths in Plasma for Plasma Shell, system settings, and device configuration will be gone. So even if you got the X11 session working in 6 to date, all of that stuff is being stripped out of Plasma, so you'd also have to go and patch that stuff back in, and basically what you're doing at that point is effectively running a fork of Plasma, which I guess is what Sonic DE is trying to be. We will see if that project actually goes anywhere. I have my doubts. X-Wayland support remains present. You can keep using your X11 applications, and our X-Wayland application support is second to none. I do like the bit of self-glazing. I would struggle to find something that does it anywhere near as good as KDE. Maybe you could argue Cosmic? Cosmic just has a number of other problems, though, that get in the way. I would say when it comes to like dealing with convenient, nice, working properly resizing, being able to pass keys into your X11 applications, all of this stuff is really, really nice. I use Neri, it has X-Wayland satellite, it works totally fine, I don't have any major issues with it, but KDE does do a bunch of the extra stuff to make things smooth. Also, I know somebody's going to bring it up, but yes, you can do X11 forwarding with X-Wayland. If you're still living in 1990 and you need X11 forwarding, and that is the only way that you can handle things, that can still be done with the X11 windows in X-Wayland. If you want to do basically the same thing with your native Wayland applications, then there are also projects like Waypipe as well, a transparent proxy for Wayland applications. Yes, it's going to require learning some slightly different commands, but the functionality is there now. If you use KDE applications on another desktop environment, this change will have no effect. KDE applications will continue to work in X11 for the foreseeable future. Considering that they support Windows and macOS, and there are no plans to drop support for those, I don't see any reason why X11 support would even be on the chopping block, again, for the foreseeable future. If it does happen, it's probably going to be up to the individual application developers. There will be developers that say, I don't care about X11 bugs, I don't care about supporting X11, I am going to drop X11. But when it comes to actually dropping it from the KDE frameworks, I don't really see any reason to do so. What's next? The possibilities this opens up are very exciting. Until now, on the desktop side, we've had to target the lowest common denominator or be stuck trying to maintain two conflicting code paths. It was absolutely the right choice to do a gradual transition and approach things this way, but that approach has its limits. Moving forward with a single code path going forward, Wayland is going to allow us to bring new performance improvements, memory optimizations, and brand new exciting features through Plasma. With that being said, there are absolutely systems out there where a change like this is going to be a problem. Old NVIDIA systems will continue to have old NVIDIA system problems. There are some race conditions which were fixed on the modern drivers, which are never going to be fixed on those older GPUs unless someone comes along and wants to get Novo working nicely on them. But there's a section of the NVIDIA GPUs that are not supported where Novo is a nightmare to get working because of firmware changes. So some of those systems are kind of just cooked. Then there are older systems in general that don't play nicely with modern GPU acceleration, where it's just not pleasant to use these. Also, there are still glaring issues with Wayland protocol design that never should have been issues, that should have been ironed out when the protocol was first being established, but there's a whole big history on why that didn't happen and why it's taken a long time to get through things, and I've talked about that in many, many videos in the past. So there are projects out there, like I mentioned before, such as Sonic DE. I don't know how this is going to survive long term. It's still a very young project. I have my doubts about it because right now, obviously, there is still X11 support in Plasma. So as things start to diverge more and more, I don't really know where this project stands. For now, though, it's basically just Plasma minus the branding. Now, the big question becomes, how many people does this affect? How many Plasma users are still stuck on X11, either for old hardware or features or any other reason? Well, we do have some numbers. Whilst it is not enabled by default on pretty much any distro and is not enabled by default upstream, there is telemetry in KDE. So these numbers may be biased, but we don't really have much in the way of numbers. How ready are we? Our internal metrics within KDE show that over 95% of users on Plasma 6.6, so that's the current version, are on Wayland, with a gradual increase every release. The metrics also show that basically no one is testing or developing Plasma on X11 anymore. The platform was already, for all intents and purposes, abandoned by KDE contributors. Especially with how loud a lot of X11 people are, that might seem crazy. But let's go back to March of 2025, where we actually had some other numbers as well. 82% of users with telemetry turned on use Wayland now. Even a year ago, it was already the majority of users. We have every reason to trust this metric, as it is exactly in line with what Sentry, our automatic crash reporting tool, reports for newly encountered crashes shows. Now, you might say about this metric, oh, well, that's just saying that the majority of the crashes are on Wayland, not necessarily that the majority of users are on Wayland. But if you have two data points that look very, very similar here, it starts to not just be two random data points and starts to be a pattern. For transparency, the one caveat in all of the above is that I've deliberately always focused on people using the latest Plasma release. We do still have a sizable chunk of users on X11 still using 527. Plasma 6 came out about 2 years ago now. I would assume a lot of these are probably Debian users, I would guess. Maybe like Kubuntu 2204, something like that. Including them, the total Wayland adoption rate is about 76%. But back then, Wayland wasn't the default session type, so it's hardly a surprise that those users are still on X11, as a lot of people just use whatever the default is. Things have come a massively long way in the 3 years since Plasma 527 released. Anyone still using Plasma 527 or any release older than Plasma 6.8 won't be affected by what we do in Plasma 6.8, and nothing will be applied retroactively. So if you want to keep using an old version, if you want to keep using 6.7 when that comes out, you can do so, assuming your distro doesn't get in the way of you doing so, and if your distro does, well, you can pin packages and custom install stuff, or switch to another distro, like again, a Debian, which does have ancient stale packages. Now, besides KDE's internal numbers, there's not really great numbers to use. However, there are some though. For example, Arch Linux package stats, which once again is pulled from data which is optional to install in your system. Most people do not install PKG stats, so again, the data can very well be biased here. But because KWin X11 was split out into a separate package and Arch Linux did not go and install that package for you, we can generally assume that anyone who has installed KWin X11 intends to actually use it. Right now, this is sitting at about 12.69%. Keep in mind though, a lot of people, myself included, don't uninstall something when they stop using it. So, whilst 12.5% of people have it installed, that doesn't mean 12.5% of people actually use it. They might have it there as a fallback, they might have used it in a prior version, didn't get rid of it, or whatever other reason they might have it. But whether it's 5%, 12.5%, 25%, if you still have issues with Wayland when 6.7 comes out, or if you have issues right now on 6.6, whilst we've had full confidence since Plasma 6.0 that our Wayland session provides the better overall experience, we are aware that things don't behave exactly the same. For example, session restoration or multi-window applications, they understand this. Not everything works the same, especially in specialized areas. We are not expecting a completely seamless transition for everyone. Custom scripts, tools used, and even workflows might have to change. But we are aiming to offer a transition where there is still a way to accomplish all your day-to-day tasks. Very importantly, Plasma 6.7 is the last release that will include an X11 session, and it's coming out in just a few days. If you still have issues that force you back to X11, we would love to hear from you. We can't promise to get everything fixed in time for 6.8, but we can promise to listen and be aware. People's remaining pain points are and will be on our radar, so please take this time to communicate them. If you have problems with the Wayland session and you want to keep using Plasma, now is not the time to keep using X11 and say, oh, the problem exists, but I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm not going to, make a post. I'm not going to make an issue. Even just, a Reddit post. That's better than nothing. But go and, go to the bug tracker, report the problem. Because if you have a problem and no one knows about the problem because it's a weird specialized setup, no one is ever going to fix the problem. This is the last release where you have a fallback that you can go to. So if you have a problem, try to make sure someone at the very least knows about the problem. Whilst they are going all in on Wayland, there are still a number of known significant issues. These are going to be addressed in time. Some of these might matter to you, others might not. But if any of these are your problems, and they still are problems, get involved with the project. If there's anything here which hasn't been reported, if there's anything here which you think should be a major issue, make sure that people know about the problem. Don't go and yell at the KDE devs because they haven't fixed the problem, but let them know that the problem still exists and people actually care about this use case. Also keep in mind that some problems have already been fixed, but they don't work exactly the same way as on X11. So you might need to modify your workflow and do things a bit differently, but also make sure you check that stuff as well. Ultimately though, if you want to keep using X11, more power to you. It's your system, it's your computer, do what you want on it, but if you want to keep using Plasma, now is the time to make sure people know there are issues. Now is the time to get involved, and even if not writing code, at least say something. Also, this year is the 30th anniversary of KDE. They are going to be running a massive donation drive, so if you want to go support the project like that, you can do so as well. I'll leave this page linked down below. So that is going to be it for me. Let me know, if you're using KDE, are you on X11 or Wayland? If you're still on X11, what is holding you back on the X11 version? What needs to change to make you switch? Is it a specific problem with KDE, or is it a problem with Wayland in general? I would love to know. So if you liked the video, go like the video. If you really liked the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe, Daily Bearer Pay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and Wayland is coming for you.
something like this.